How's it going, everybody? I'm Josh, KI6NAZ, and we are continuing the General Class License Study Prep. We want you to get that general license that when it really opens up high-frequency radio contacts, that beyond line of sight, over to another country, over an ocean, into another continent even. And I think that's where a lot of fun of radio is. So we are using hamstudy.org for this. It's a free website. You can check it out. I'm also using the accompanying app. There is a charge in the App Store for it, a couple of bucks. You do get the added convenience to be able to take this along with you anywhere. But if you want to study at hamstudy.org, it is completely free. I would like to point out that there is this thing right here. It says find a session, right? Find a session will show you where tests are going on all the time. We have tests happening constantly online. So you can sit in a test online with an application that actually Ham Study works on called Exam Tools, and you can take your test in the comfort of your home or comfort of almost anywhere, assuming that they can do a check of the area and make sure that it's secure, that you're not cheating. Let's just be honest, right? So easy. Highly recommend you go check out my playlist for technician if this is the first thing you've ever heard about taking a test for amateur radio to get your American United States license. You need to go get technician, general, and extra. Those are the order. Technician starts the game, though. It's the easiest one. I'm telling you, it's real easy, and I got a playlist linked in the video description. So go check that out. But we are on sub-element 6 of the general test. So let's click on that. We'll go to read questions, and we want to go to sub-element 6, which is circuit components. Circuit components. This one can be fun for some of you. The last one can be a little tricksy with the mathing, so this is going to be a bit of a return to hopefully some easier things. So this is broken up into two sections, alpha and bravo, resistors, capacitors, inductors, rectifiers, solid-state diodes, and transistors, I'm assuming. And then analog and digital integrated circuits, or ICs, and microwave ICs. Great stuff. So let's dive in with Section A. What is the minimum allowable discharge voltage for maximum life of a standard 12-volt lead-acid battery? It is 10.5 volts. Now, this is what I would call a question that's probably going to get removed in the future. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But a lot of folks are moving off to lithium-ion batteries for ham radio and 12-volt systems in general, except for maybe a car. It's good to know, but, something to keep in mind. 10.5 volts is the minimum allowable discharge voltage for a standard 12-volt lead-acid battery to retain maximum cell life. That's literally just the question restated again. Discharging below this level can cause changes in the chemical nature of the cell, which is irreversible, which can damage and destroy the cell. Okay, so there you go. Question 2, what is an advantage of batteries with low internal resistance? And it is high discharge current. Question 3, what is the approximate forward threshold voltage for a germanium diode? And it is 0.3 volts. I think we're going to get to a fun one. This threshold is the voltage over which the diode can conduct signal current. Different materials have different junction threshold voltages, so the value of each diode is determined by the properties of the material used in the construction. For example, a diode made of silicon has a junction threshold of about 0.7 volts. Keep in mind, you can blow these things up if you give it too much voltage, so that's one of the reasons why you want to make sure you're within range. Question 4, what of the following is characteristic of an electrolytic capacitor? High capacitance for given volume. C is the answer they're looking for there. Question 5, what is the approximate forward threshold voltage of a silicon junction diode? We got the hint from reading the explain on the germanium diode one, and it is 0.7 volts. Question 6, why should wire-wound resistors not be used in RF circuits? And the answer is B, the resistor's inductance could make circuit performance unpredictable. Why might that be the case? The construction of a wire-wound resistor is very similar to that of an inductor. It's true. So in situations where extra inductance may be an issue, such as RF, they are not a good component choice. Unpredictable, meaning you're putting RF bits in something that should not be RF bits, or could affect. It'll create, it'll create a field that could impact your RF areas of the radio. Question 7, what are the operating points for a bipolar transistor used as a switch? And it is A, saturation and cutoff. Bipolar transistor. The operating points are saturation and cutoff. Is there an image? There is not, but we can look one up for you. And yeah, that's about what you're going to expect. Typical individual BJT packages. Now, I see more of these type of guys in our radios more often than not, so keep that in mind. Question 8, which of the following is characteristic of low voltage ceramic capacitors? D, they're cheap, comparatively low cost. Question 9, which of the following describes MOSFET construction? B, the gate is separated from the channel by a thin insulated layer. Okay, so a MOSFET, metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. Because the electromagnetic field in the name needs a dead end at the gate. The field is created when positive or negative charges accumulate on the gate of the electrode. The field pushes or pulls the electrons and holes within the nearby N-type or P-type materials, which opens and shuts the channel between the gate and the source as desired for the circuit under construction. So you need that little layer for it to pile up and then push through or be pulled through. Question 10, which elements of a vacuum tube regulates the flow of electrons between the cathode and the plate? And that is the grid. Now, some of you are like, why are we even talking about vacuum tubes? Well, they're still quite popular in amplifiers. Tube amplifiers are still used all the time in the hobby. They are reliable. Tubes are not completely extinct. They're kind of going that way, but there's still a lot of tubes available for some equipment, particularly amplifiers, and they do work really well. Tuning them up is actually really easy too. I have a video on tuning up a tube amp, and it's easy. Nothing to worry about. Question 11, what happens when an inductor is operated by its self-resonant frequency? And it's C, it becomes capacitive. So if you have an inductor and it is self-resonant, it's a capacitor at that point. Question 12, what is the primary purpose of a screen grid in a vacuum tube? And it's A, to reduce grid to plate capacitance. So it was the same question stated a different way, to get two shots in there on vacuum tubes. So let's go check out section B. Question 1 on section B, what determines the performance of a ferrite core at different frequencies? This is going to become really prevalent for you all who decide to go build your own antennas, or you start buying toroid cores like this one to wrap your power cords through, USB cords, whatever, when you have a device that may be potentially creating radio frequency interference. The mix of this, it's like an epoxy nickel metal composition. There's other metals that are in here as well. But yeah, it's mixed up metal with epoxy and some other stuff. And the mixture of this is what's going to make it effective at certain frequencies and not others. And so you need to select the right toroid for transformers for antennas, but you also need to select the right ones if you're going to be using them as RFI suppression tools, if you will. So I will click the explain here because it might be helpful. Ferrites are composed of ceramic mixture. The ratio of the ceramic binder, iron powder, and other trace materials can vary. Ceramic, epoxy, I've actually seen them both, but yeah. Producing different electrical characteristics. Silly hint, think of mixed martial arts when performing music. I like a mix of compositions. Okay. What is meant by the term MMIC? I've always said mimic, but I know that's not right. It's a monolithic microwave integrated circuit. Very important for higher frequency stuff. Question 3, which of the following is an advantage of CMOS integrated circuits compared to TTL integrated circuits? And it is low power consumption. That's the whole kit and caboodle right there. Question 4, what is the typical upper frequency limit for low SWR operations of 50 ohm B and C connectors? This is a very important thing to remember, too. The connectors you use with your radios have upper limits of frequencies that they can work with. It just so happens that BNC tops out at about 4 gigahertz, and then you have to go to something like an SMA or a Type N. There's a myriad of connectors that go higher than that. Question 5. What is an advantage of using a ferrite core toroidal inductor? And it is D. All of these choices are correct. A, large value of inductance may be obtained. The magnetic properties of the core may be optimized for a specific range of frequencies. And then C, most of the magnetic field is contained in the core. That's very good. Question 6, what kind of device is integrated circuit operational amplifier? And it is D, an analog circuit. Question 7, which of the following describes a Type N connector? We just talked about Type N. A moisture resistance RF connector useful to 10 gigahertz, 6 more gigahertz than the BNC. Question 8, how is an LED biased when emitting light? And it is D, forward biased. It's a diode, forward biased. Question 10, how does a ferrite bead or core reduce common mode RF current on the shield of a coaxial cable? And it is A, by creating an impedance in the current's path. So the current in this case that they're talking about is common mode current. Common mode current rides on the exterior. I'm looking for a piece of coax when I do this, but you can understand what I'm saying. Rides on the exterior shield of the coax, right? It's just running along. And you can use these guys by running the coax through here and looping it multiple times, which I have an example of a USB cord where I did that exact thing. You're adding impedance every time the line goes through the whole of the toroid. So if you have 8 or more wraps, you're creating multiple, factor of resistance or impedance to that path, to that current's path, which is good. We want that. Question 11, what is an SMA connector? And it is B, a small threaded connector suitable for signals up to several gigahertz. And I definitely have one of those around here. Now, this is the BNC connector talked about. It's bayonet connector. It goes in like so and then rotates and locks into place, right? This is a very handy connector for portable antennas. We talked about that earlier. But then the SMA type is this little guy. It's this little threaded connector inside my little baggie here from a recent trip to the ham radio swap meet. But you can see this is a small little connector, small little guy, but great for high gigahertz, high frequency stuff. And an N type, just to show you that too. Let me grab one of those. So this is actually an N type adapter. This is a chunky one, but you can see it's got a couple of things going on there. You got a center pin and then an interior circle and then this outer. And this is a weather resistant, I would say, connector, but it has a BNC adapter on the other end, right? So there's a number of adapters like these that exist that you can use for testing, for antennas, the whole 9 yards. Question 12, what of these connector types is commonly used for low frequency to DC signal connections to a transceiver? RCA Phono. That is the single pin with the outer little metal circle. Yeah, that's an old school one, but yeah, we still use those for a number of things. And that's the end of section 6. Sub-element 6 is in the books now. If you're liking my little sweater that I got on, I have them over at hamtactical.com, the website that I run with my wife. Got a number of different options there, different things in general, but I happen to really like. It's getting a little colder here, so I figured I'd put on my little radio sweater as we do the end or the remainder of these sub-elements. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching this entire series. I will update links in the video description. If you're seeing this and you're like, I'm not a technician yet, I don't even know where to begin, well, I got a playlist for you as well. The technician playlist is in the video description. Start there. It's your first line for getting your amateur radio tests and operating here in the United States. I'm Josh, KI6NAZ. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. 73.